Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between towering mountains, there lived a man named Marcus. Marcus was a hard-working farmer who spent his days tending to his crops and animals. But despite his simple life, Marcus was always worried. He worried about the weather, about his crops failing, about his animals getting sick, and about what others thought of him. His mind was never at peace, and this constant worry made his days heavy and his nights restless. One evening, as Marcus sat by the fire, his old friend Lucius came to visit. Lucius was a traveler who had seen many lands and learned many things. He noticed the worry in Marcus' eyes and asked him what was wrong. Marcus sighed and told him about all his fears. Lucius listened carefully, then smiled and said, "Marcus, you are suffering because you are trying to control what is not in your power. The Stoics, the ancient philosophers, have a better way to live." Marcus had never heard of the Stoics before, so he asked Lucius to explain. Lucius began by telling him a simple truth. There are things we can control and things we cannot. The weather, the opinions of others, even the health of your crops. These are not entirely in your hands. What you can control is how you respond to them. Marcus frowned. But if I don't worry, how will I prepare for the bad things that might happen? Lucius nodded. Preparation is wise, but worry is useless. Think of it like this. A sailor does not control the wind, but he can adjust his sails. A Stoic does not waste energy on fear of storms. Instead, he learns to navigate them. Over the next few days, Lucius taught Marcus the ways of Stoicism. He explained that Stoics focus on 4 key principles to live without worry. The first principle was understanding what is in our control. Marcus, Lucius said, your thoughts, your actions, your choices, these belong to you. Everything else is outside your power. When you accept this, you stop fighting against life and start flowing with it. The second principle was practicing acceptance. Life will bring hardships, Lucius continued. But suffering comes not from the hardship itself, but from our resistance to it. If your crops fail, you can choose to adapt rather than despair. If people speak ill of you, you can choose not to let their words define you. The third principle was living in the present. Worry lives in the future, Lucius explained. But the future is unknown. The past is gone. The only moment you truly have is now. Focus on what you can do today, and let tomorrow take care of itself. The fourth principle was gratitude. Even in hardship, there is something to be thankful for, Lucius said. A Stoic does not ignore pain, but he also does not ignore the good. Each day remember what you have rather than what you lack. Marcus listened carefully and decided to try these teachings. The next morning, instead of waking up with dread, he took a deep breath and reminded himself, I control my actions, not the weather. When dark clouds gathered, he did not panic. Instead, he prepared as best he could and accepted that some things were beyond him. When his neighbor criticized him, Marcus remembered that opinions were not in his control. He chose not to react with anger, and soon the neighbor's words lost their power over him. Day by day, Marcus practiced these lessons. He began each morning by reminding himself of what he could control. When worry crept in, he asked himself, is this in my power? If not, I let it go. He focused on his work without fear, knowing he was doing his best. And at night he reflected on the good in his life, his health, his family, the food on his table. Months passed, and something remarkable happened. Marcus realized he was no longer the same man. His mind was calmer. His heart was lighter. The same challenges came, storms, sickness, troubles, but they no longer ruled him. He faced them with clarity and strength. One evening, Lucius visited again. He saw the peace in Marcus' eyes and smiled. You have learned well, he said. Marcus nodded. I finally understand. Worrying did not change anything. It only stole my joy. But Stoicism taught me how to live. Lucius placed a hand on his shoulder. And now, you are free. From that day on, Marcus lived as a Stoic. He still worked hard, still faced difficulties, but he no longer carried the weight of unnecessary fear. He knew that true strength was not in controlling life, but in mastering his own mind. And so, dear listener, the lesson of Marcus is simple. Worry does not protect you from suffering. It only robs you of peace. But if you learn to distinguish between what you can and cannot control, if you accept life as it comes, if you focus on the present and practice gratitude, you too can stop worrying and start living like a Stoic. The path is not always easy, but it is worth it. For in the end, the only thing we truly own is our own mind. And when we master that, we master our lives. So take a deep breath. Let go of what you cannot change. Focus on what you can, and step forward, not in fear, but in strength. That is the way of the Stoic. That is the way to freedom.